Hello, welcome back to the Power of Manifestation. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I am like giddy with excitement for this session. Oh my gosh, you guys. We are tapping into the vast power of intuition, the same secret force that Hollywood stars and Fortune 500 CEOs quietly credit for making their big power moves, and I suspect avoiding the wrong moves. I am joined by arguably the most famous corporate intuitive, none other than Laura Day. New York Times bestselling author and teacher Laura Day has spent 4 decades using intuition to help individuals and billion-dollar companies alike identify and achieve their goals. She is the author of 6 previous books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers, among them Practical Intuition, The Circle, Welcome to Your Crisis, and How to Rule the World from Your Couch. We're going to talk about that too. A sought-after public speaker, Laura has been featured in publications galore, including Forbes, The Guardian, New York, Newsweek, Cosmopolitan, Marie Claire, People. I just saw her clip in Vanity Fair for her new book, which we're going to talk about. She's appeared on CNN, the BBC, Good Morning America, The View, and The Oprah Winfrey Show many times, and many others. A strong advocate of using our vulnerabilities, this is where it gets good, guys, to make ourselves extraordinary. Laura gives frequent workshops and live Instagram broadcasts that are followed by thousands, and she spends much of her practice training her students to use their own intuitive abilities to transform their lives. Laura has a grown son, Samson, lives in New York City with her husband, the super awesome, super cool screenwriter, producer, and journalist, Stephen Schiff, and her new book, The Prism, 7 Steps to Heal Your Past and Transform Your Future Self, came out recently. It is beautiful and brilliant. I so enjoyed it. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to grab your Power of Manifestation handbook, because guess what? There are going to be so many takeaways from the session. You're going to want to write them down. You're going to want to come back to them. This is going to be such a riveting and entertaining session, but it's also going to be a profoundly action-oriented one. Action, action, action. You are going to find out from Laura. She's all about action. So you're going to want to write it down, come back to it. And if you don't have the Power of Manifestation handbook, you can get it literally right now at powerofmanifestation.com. And if you're just not feeling that, you can always write it in a notebook. But the handbook is so great because it has a lot of prompts and other goodies to make the experience even more rich and worth your time. Okay. I need to take a breath. Welcome, Laura.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well done.
Thank you. Well, I am feeling it. I told you when we just before we started with the cameras on, how moved I am by you personally, your story, and your work. And so I'm just so appreciative of your being on this session with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I always love to speak to people about intuition because it is a way to manifest or make something happen in your life quickly. And I think we get so bogged down as people, as corporations, we just get so trapped into these paradigms. And really, we have the answers.
Well, we have the answers thanks to you. And I've been I've got my coins. I am ready.
Before we start, I'm going to ask every one of your listeners or viewers or whatever you want to call them, I want you to pick one single goal that just for the purposes, and you can listen to this again, but everything that you ask me, I'm going to refer it back to one of the exercises that I use with corporations, with film studios, with people to create those goals. So, but the starting point is always, you're getting information all the time. You're putting efforts everywhere. Have a container, and that container should be a goal, not a problem, a goal.
Oh, I love that. That's a great place to start. So thank you so much for that. Okay. So I wanted to just sort of tee up this conversation. We're going to go through maybe a little looser or tighter than depending on how the conversation goes. But we've got 3 sections. why manifesting techniques fail. Okay, we're flipping it on its head, folks. How to find your secret power and use it, and how to tap into the infinite power we all share. So we're getting into all the good stuff and starting with the goal, right? So I love it that you started with that, Laura. Thank you. What I would love to do is you sat down with Oprah, I think just a handful of weeks ago, to explain intuition when your book was coming out. This gives such a beautiful context to the prism. Like I said, I think before we even started, I read it. I was so moved. It was so motivating to me. So what I'd love to do is just start with a small clip, let everybody get a even clearer sense of who you are. You're an amazing teacher. But what has magnetically attracted me to you, quite honestly, and as somebody who has experienced in my growing up depression, addiction. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, some of it directly, but the people around me, suicide, and some of the things that you talk about with so much care and sincerity and grace and depth. So I'm going to tee up just a little bit of that latest interview with Oprah, let everybody get a sense of you, and then we'll dive into your teachings. How does that sound?
Sounds great. I was 10 or 11. My mother had taken a massive overdose. She was in the apartment next door. It was locked. I didn't have a key. My grandmother had come because they had had a big fight. The police had come. My father was out of the house. The other kids went to camp. I, of course, never left my mother's side. That was my job, was to take care of my mother. And I woke up and I thought to myself, she's dying. I went to the phone to do what I'd learned how to do by then, which was call the police. And they knew me at the precinct. They were like lovely. They would give me lollipops on the street. They were like really,
And was it your grandmother in the house who said, don't make that call because then the people will know our business?
Yes, my grandmother said, she was furious. And she said, don't do that. All the neighbors will know. And I looked at her and I didn't even realize this consciously. I said, Grandma, the neighbors know.
The neighbors already know.
Yeah, I mean, and frankly, it wasn't even embarrassing to me. These were my parents. This was my family. This was my life. So I called and they either knocked down, I don't remember the details, they either knocked down the door or got the super, one or the other, to open it up. And literally she had just stopped breathing. And when they say people are blue, she was blue. They took her out on stretcher, she was blue. They took her to Bellevue. My grandmother disappeared, didn't even show up. I followed on foot. It was right up First Avenue from my house, about 12 blocks. Sat in the emergency room admittance for days. And the staff would always say, who's your adult? And I would say, oh, my mom's here with me.
But tell us about you willing your mother back. You could feel your mother was dying.
I could.
And you were speaking to her while she was in the coma.
All the time. And we had always telepathically spoken to each other. And I didn't think this was weird at all. So they finally call the chaplain. And I said, and I was very, you're strong when you're a survivor. And I said, where is my mother? Why does she have a hole in her throat? Why is this machine doing this? What's the beeping sound? And he was like, who let you into intensive care? Because you're not allowed in at that age. Mm-hmm. And I said, nobody. He said, well, how do you know that? Who told you? And I said, I see it here. Which for me, I thought everyone saw it there. I didn't realize I was really different in any way.
So you prefer to be called an intuitive rather than a psychic. What is the difference in your point of view?
I think the word psychic magicalizes a very useful, verifiable, simple human ability that is life-saving. And when you mystify something, it's great business. Spirituality is a billion-dollar industry. It's not great for people. Everybody has this ability. A tiny bit of information, a tiny change can change your entire life. And it's so important to engage in that change. And you can't find it inside of you. That's the great myth. If you had the answer, you would have answered the question. It's outside of you. It's in community. It's in self-help. It's in what you did for me the first time. Demi dragged me 30 years ago out of my very isolated comfort zone and said, you're going to do this show. And I didn't own a TV at the time. I mean, this was completely out of my realm.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. It is amazing and so cool to see how close you are to Oprah going back like decades. Like, that is amazing, Laura. That's so cool.
The very first TV show I did in the US. I'd done some in France, but the very first TV show I did was with Diane Sawyer, who's still a friend. And we're talking 30 years ago. But Oprah, but that was in New York, so it was easy. Oprah required a trip to Chicago, which is not where I live, where Demi dragged me. And so that was a big thing for me at that age to leave my child for a day, to go out of my comfort zone. I didn't have a TV. I'm a reader, and so
I can relate to that, by the way.
I didn't even know what Oprah was. And it was, she is amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing, an amazing gesture of faith and friendship that Demi Moore dragged me and went on with me and, made sure my hair wasn't all over the place and, dressed me. Yes, one of the things actually that I got from that first show, that first Oprah appearance 3 decades ago, was she said, we all get stuck in the woulda, shoulda, couldas. And in the prism, one of the things I talk about, and I want you all to experience as I'm speaking, are time zones. Because when you are mindful, and mindful is not meditation, mindfulness is simply dealing with you here and now at this point in space time on the matrix, not the future, not the past, dealing with what is right now. When you are fully in the present, and as fully as you can be, and also fully in yourself, because we are non-local all the time. One of the things that now, when I first was tested for extrasensory perception, we didn't have the instrumentation we have now. But now we can show that the brain does respond to something in the future because we can see what the brain does, and we can have a computer randomly generate an image at a future point in time. And so we're really able to show that the human mind is made for predicting the future or feeling someone from a distance or being somewhere else. It's actually, people don't need so much to learn how to expand their intuition. They need to learn how to recognize it and to apply it. So if you take a moment now, you have your goal. I asked you in the beginning to pick one. Don't be meditative, but as I'm speaking, be in the present. Notice your 5 senses. That's the best way. Now, one of the things that happens when you have a goal is that everything you experience has a context. If you take the gasoline out of the car, it's just a puddle in the ground that's flammable. We are the machine. And what we call energy or spirit, that's the gasoline. The machine, though, needs to have some sense of where it wants to go. And we're very good at human beings of knowing where we don't want to go or what we don't think we can have. But knowing where we want to go and then being in the present. And what happens when you're in the present, and people don't like the present for one big reason, which is you have to do something. The present, the past and the future, you don't really have to do very much about. But when you have a goal and when your attention is in the present, and then when you do something, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, called soft focus, what happens is that your past automatically takes on a different context to empower you in the present. So, I was a victim of abuse as a child. I am recontextualized, I am a survivor of people bigger than I was harming me as an adult. I am a superpower. So that context feeds my present, empowers me. And then your intuition, your awareness of the future doesn't become what most people use it for, which is, oh my God, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. This is going to happen. And they freeze like a deer in headlights. What it does is it informs your present. So you have a restructuring because of that goal of the past, and you have information about the present, about the future that allows you to do something different. Now, in order to do that, you really need to engage something called, one of the many things, is soft focus. So we tend to focus on a problem. And I want you all to look in front of you, and I want you to focus on a point, really focus on a point. And then I want you to notice how the periphery disappears when you do that. So all of that information goes away. You no longer have access to it if you ever did, because really our beliefs really are like those blinders. And our foci are usually things that are historical and not even pertinent or present in our current life. So as you focus on that point, I want you to allow literally your visual focus to go soft, to open up. And I want you to allow all of your senses, your taste, your smell, your feeling, your thoughts, don't try to rein them in. Let all your physical experience, just let it all go soft. What happens, even if you're not consciously aware of it, is the subconscious begins to let in useful material contextualized by your goal that may have to do with your past to help you revision it, that may be accurate information about your future. So you change that in the only place you can, which is in the present. And already you have created a dynamic of manifesting not from your past, but from what is current now. And one of the most important things that I think, one reason manifestation techniques don't work is a lot of times they ask you to do something different, to look deeply within yourself and to have self-awareness. Self-awareness and looking deeply into yourself, those are unicorns. They're mythological beings because you don't have the perspective. That's why intuition's so wonderful. It's outside of yourself. You don't have the perspective to make change. So what happens is you end up working really hard, thinking you're doing something differently, but actually you're not, because you can't. You need an external catalyst to, and that's why I write self-help. That's why I wrote The Prism. And that's why I called it The Prism is your structure. You cannot think outside the box. You are the box. What you need is a catalyst. And the catalyst can be a therapist, self-help, a community, a podcast. Now, of course, we tend to filter out the things that don't resonate with us. Again, manifestation techniques often don't work because what's comfortable for you, what resonates with you, isn't going to change you.
Right. Let me just, go ahead if you want to finish that thought.
Yes. What you believe in, belief and feeling are two other unicorns. You don't need to believe in a hammer for it to be able to hammer in a nail. All you need to know is how to use it. And then the belief comes from proof. It comes from, okay, if I follow these directions, I can hammer in that nail. And then you're going to use it over and over and over again to create change in your life.
Totally. And I love that explanation. And I love, again, just, we're talking about the power of manifestation and identifying where manifestation can be insufficient or not doesn't work, right? Because a lot of people will do vision boards and so forth, and they wonder why this fails. Let me ask you about intuition. You just said something that.
Wait, I want to interrupt one thing.
Yeah, please.
A wonderful thing to do with a vision board. A vision board you're going to put together to some degree, really just from your history. It's not going to be a vision board. It's going to be a memory board of what you wanted.
It's not a vision board, people, memory board. Because
the person you will be would create a different board. But what's really wonderfully helpful about a vision board, and I have one. I may like flash it to you, but I do them all the time. And I have it on my wall and I add to it. And then I ask people when they come in to look at it. And, the great thing about being basically a psychic is if you're weird, people expect it.
I love it. I do want to see that vision board.
So I say, look at this and tell me, where is it guiding you? And they will see something so completely different than what I consciously intended. So I will hear my subconscious. I will hear my intuition. I will hear my deepest guidance filtered out by my old archaic structure, because someone else looks at it and says, you know, like someone looked at it and it was all about one thing, I thought. And all they saw were all these little duckies. And this is about having fun. And I thought, wow, that's right. I keep thinking I'll have fun when this vision board happens. But no, it's about the duckies. It's about having fun. It's about playing in the tub. And it's really funny because I have this 2-person, I mean, it's really like a 4-person tub, really deep, because I have a very tall son. And we, one of the things that I started doing was literally we started having playtime in the tub. That sounds very X-rated, but it's not. Taking a cold beverage into the tub.
Oh, nice.
Really having like fun time out in the tub without our phones, without someone coming to the door, without all the things that are left around, So it was really helpful. And what it did was it created one of my goals. Okay, now I'm going to let you speak. I love to talk.
So much to unpack there. Oh my God, I love it. Well, first of all, I love that soft focus exercise, which I'd done before, but it does, it felt like almost instantaneous. There was this opening up. And as, so many of us we're so, we're just so focused on whatever we're focused on to do that soft focus exercise. Like I could feel it. And so I love that. But I wanted to come back to what you were saying about intuition. It's outside of yourself, which was just a big head fake to me, because I think of the intuition coming from within. But I think you said, well, it could be a therapist, it could be a podcast, it could be what you were describing. And even as you describe, as you're guiding Fortune 500 CEOs and so forth, you don't know very much. You're just talking about what you see without any biases. Right. Which I want to come back to.
Because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right. Well, exactly. But that's so interesting to me. So talk to me about is that just from my understanding and everybody watching and listening, intuition, you literally said it's a catalyst from outside of you. So it seems like it's kind of both. It's a catalyst that's almost like catalyzing the insight inside of you. Is that a fair way to interpret that?
No.
Or tell me if I'm wrong.
So, there is a Jungian description of intuition, which is that all-knowing cosmic consciousness that we have within. But intuition in a practical sense is the fact that our attention can travel in space and time. And again, you go to PubMed and you can, put in keywords and see all the tests that have been done about these, esoteric seeming psychic skills.
Well, ESP, and there's so much. And again, just listening to your book and so much of your work, it is really fascinating. The science and the data is really fascinating.
But intuition, in the Jungian sense, is kind of this deep wisdom. When I speak about intuition, I'm speaking about actual data points, things that you couldn't know, that you've never been exposed to. And a lot of the reason people don't manifest, and I have a funny take on that word, because manifest simply means you make something happen. And the reason that people don't make things happen is their structure doesn't have any windows in that direction. So what's inside, if the answer were inside of you, you wouldn't be asking the question. And that's true of companies as well. I work with really brilliant CEOs, but they're working within a paradigm. And so they don't tend to see either the opportunities or the risks that come completely from outside their experience. So intuition is, and I'll give you an example, is a piece of data from outside. So for example, one morning, I think it was 2008, I woke up and I thought, you know what? I am really uncomfortable being in the stock market. And I called my broker, and she confirmed this on CNN. And I called my broker and I said, sell everything. And she said, no, you've gone up 30% and blah, blah, blah. And the market's robust. And I said, it's not making me digest my food. Just sell, I just had my sense was that my money wasn't safe there. And I forget how long after, 2 weeks or 2 months, the market crashed. It was the great credit crunch, blah, blah, blah. Now, I never say to a person or a company, do this. I'm not qualified. Just like I never make a medical diagnosis for anyone but a doctor for their patients. I'm very careful about the ethics around that. But I did tell my clients, I've sold all my stocks. Just want you to know. And one of the, we confuse intuition is not feeling. It's the opposite end of the spectrum. Intuition is data. Intuition doesn't say your partner's cheating on you. Intuition says, look in the black jacket, in the mudroom closet, in the breast pocket. That's
interesting. Okay.
It is data. It is verifiable. And I train intuitives. It is an ability we all have, but we undercut this ability by making it into this thing that's full of imagery and full of belief. It's not. It is data that's available to all of us because at the core of it, we are one energy. We are simply, just like this is one hand, but it has digits. We are the digits. And so it is really very useful when you take the magic out of it, when you use it simply as a skill, and then you document it, you verify it, and you apply it. And a lot of manifestation techniques magicalize, or they take physics and kind of dilute it and make some weird non-scientific, I come from a family of scientists and physicists, and they look at it and they think, oh my God, how did they get this from this? On the other hand, there's a lot of, proof. There's a lot of documentation. There's been a lot of research from the military, from major universities on these extrasensory skills that all of us have. So if you take the magic out and you apply it to real life goals, again, goals give you context. You can have all the information in the world, but if you don't file it, it's like my shoe closet. Finding actually two of the same shoe is very hard in my shoe closet. So it's really important to be able to have that filing system, apply it, prove or disprove it, and don't train yourself to vagaries.
Okay. Well, let me ask you. Okay. So what do you mean by don't train yourself to vagaries?
So on Instagram Live, every morning, and it's different time zone for everyone because, of course, I travel so much that morning in London is, middle of the night in LA. But I have people do the prism. And some people do the circle, which is the precursor, but I have them write down their 3 goals. When you do the prism, the first thing you do is create the structure, and you create the structure with 3 goals. I have coins at home, and they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. I pick a coin without looking at it. I hold it. I say, okay, I've got your coin. They do a reading first for themselves and then for someone else. But I torture them if their reading says, I feel love. I see blue. That you're saying nothing. It's like when a medium in a group of 1,000 says, does anyone have an uncle named Bob? I mean, really? Yeah. Whereas does anyone have an Irish uncle named Bob who died on the Titanic while taking his new bride home? Okay, that has enough detail. It's beyond the realm of does anyone have an uncle named Bob?
Chance, right? Because the chances are somebody's going to have an uncle named Bob versus that specificity. Okay, I'm tracking.
Specificity also helps you do something. Like I love it when people say, "I see something happening in September." Really? Something? A lot of something's going to happen in September.
Going to get up every day, right?
And we don't experience life in those vagaries. We actually, when you say, I see you getting a book offer, and then you notice, you train yourself to notice, when is it? It's in December. How do I know? I'm smelling a fir like a Christmas tree. Then I see maybe an S initial. And then now that may be not knowing that you're like someone on Instagram, they don't know what the other person's doing. So they don't know that the other person has just finished a book or is trying to promote a book. And So they have no idea. But then the complete stranger can confirm, oh, I'm taking a book out. I really want to sell it. I have been really frustrated, blah, 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 blah. And then the person's given them enough detail that they had no way of knowing anything about, that they can kind of see, oh, this may happen in December.
Okay. So
and
that,
prepare appropriately.
So I'd love to jump into our section 2, how to find your secret power, i.e. intuition, use it. But just to kind of wrap up with this first session, tell me if I'm getting this right, that manifestation fails when it's not rooted in intuition.
And when it's not rooted in reality.
And it's not rooted in reality.
The fact of the matter is, this moment is challenging for all of us, no matter how wonderful it is. Because this moment requires we show up and that we also have a realistic experience of what's around us. So yeah, maybe we're not able to do this yet. Maybe we don't have this yet, but pretend tools create pretend results. When you accept reality, at least to the degree that you can perceive it, and again, it's really helpful to get, trustworthy input. But when you accept reality, you also are then empowered to find real tools to deal with what it is you're not equipped for. Simply saying, I'm getting better and better doesn't make you better and better. You actually need to find those tools.
Wow. That's crazy.
Okay, well, let's jump then to section 2, how to find your secret power and use it, i.e. intuition. And you wrote that famous book, Practical Intuition. So what is it? How do we use it? And you've touched on it in this conversation already, but I would just love to really ground the beginning of this next section in that intuitive power.
So intuition it's non-local perception. So everything you experience right now, you can also experience in the future. You can be someone else and experience it from their point of view. You can go to a remote location with really a lot of your energy, or even with just your mind's eye, with your perceptions. And all of this has been verified. It's been verified by major universities. It's been used by the military. I've stopped putting the research in my book because it's so easily available now online. But we all have this ability to get any information from any point in time about anything. The problem is we have biases, and also the mind's a messy place. So, we have a lot of information, but we don't know how to apply it. And often it overwhelms us. It makes us scared. It makes us make mistakes when the information is what someone wants and we don't realize it's not what we want. It's what someone else wants, because we are porous beings. Again, which is why I say have your goals, because then you say, oh, wait, is this resonant with my goal? Why am I doing this? When I wake up upset for no reason, my husband says, who's in you? And immediately I know. It's really interesting. We don't realize that we're not inviolate creatures. We are very porous. Your superpower is often the thing you struggle with. So your superpower is often where you've had to put the most effort. But unfortunately, it's also the place we hide. So your gentle sensitivity that made you not fit in school, maybe something you hide under a shell of bravado. And one of the easiest ways to heal that, to take that superpower you've worked on because you had to bolster it up, you had to work so hard on it, is to notice what it is you want. Really, what's your purpose? Research shows that purpose is the biggest indicator of health and longevity in older adults, because purpose organizes, just like goals, organizes our resources, organizes the integrity of our being. So when you really, tap into what by tap in, when you allow yourself to experience, okay, what is it I really want right now? I'm not talking about in the future. You get lofty and you get away from your resources. Right now, what is it that I want? And then you notice, because our bodies are maps for our world, you notice where it is on your body that you are getting stuck. And so, for example, you might, and you can do this with someone else too. Like, if you're making a deal or if you're working with the market, where when you notice them, are they hungry? Because that is what you have to address in order to get a yes, in order to make the deal. And then you find that section in the prism, you find that section in the structure, which is really what the prism, the book, does for you. And it gives you simple, tiny changes that will completely change the dynamic. And my favorite example is my best friend is a huge Hollywood agent, and he called me before my book came out, and he said, "I just booked you on a big show, big national. I'm in New York. He's in LA. The show is in LA. He said, I got you a first class ticket. Your room is ready. Hair and makeup's booked. You can have my driver." And I said, I can't do that. It's tomorrow. Like, no, like I'm not packed. And he's like, whoa, 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 rewind. It's like, wow, Kevin, wow. And yes, and thank you. And so I went to that center in the book because I realized, wait, I just did a ridiculous thing. And I went to that center.
What center was it?
For me, it was the fourth.
Okay.
It was about value.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I was, my value was my introversion. I wasn't valuing my friends' efforts. I wasn't, I wasn't connecting, which is what the Fourth Ego Center was about. Like, I wanted to stay in my introversion. And I did one small change. And the way to pick the change when you're working the system is to pick the one that makes you want to throw up. Like, how much? Like, the one that does not resonate with you, where you say, this is absolutely, it's safe. You got to always stay safe. But this is absurd. And I picked one of the assertions, I call them, where, you give openly, you accept freely, it's all about openness and love. And it's like, yuck, because it's not all about love. Sometimes it's about defending yourself. Sometimes it's about, but that's the one that for me, I resisted the most. And again, if it resonates with you, it helps the problem stay in place. You have to pick something that doesn't. So I picked that. And I did that. And I called him back and I said, yes, and thank you. And then I showed up at this show, and it was the amazing Jennifer Hudson, who is the warmest person on earth. Her producer gave me all of my sound bites ahead of my whole tour. Another fabulous agent, the head of television at Creative Artists, showed up to be moral support and to make sure I was dressed appropriately. It was the most incredible experience. So I kept it in place, and I kept that behavior in place with my friends, in my marriage. That week, I booked, I forget, 3 or 4 other national shows, like an unheard of amount, because I changed that part of my structure.
Well, I love that. And yay you, and yay for the success of this beautiful book, and that so many people are getting to it, and you had so much help in getting it out there. So what you just said, rather than the resonance, it sounds like what you're urging us to do is where we're in resistance, where we want to puke, like really noticing where we're in resistance and doing that. Is that right?
You can't notice until, I actually do my own book. So I went the whole thing, I felt it here. The fourth, I opened the book, I went to the Fourth Ego Center, I looked down the assertions, and I picked the one that for me just felt ridiculous. I mean, where I said, how did I even write that? And I asked myself if it was safe to do. And then I practiced it. Now, of course, if I had done that and nothing positive had happened, that would also have been proof that maybe I misinterpreted something. Because the difference between the prism and other kind of self-help systems is that it's not about how you feel. No, it's about what you do and the response you get from the world. It's about doing something different, whether you understand or not the why behind it, whether it's, something that you can integrate into yourself or not, but doing something different and then noticing what happens.
Well, let me ask you this. So on your website, you've got a quote from Brad Pitt saying, "I believe in the gut and I believe in Laura Day." So is he referring to, what would that be? Would that be the second or third chakra or ego center where he's tapping into that?
No, he's referring to the accuracy of prediction. The accuracy of intuition. I think that especially back at the time that quote was written, and especially when I started, now intuition's part of our lexicon. People call me the grandmother of intuition. That really dates me. But when
I'd say godmother, not grandmother, godmother.
I'm fine being
okay.
As you know from the book, I'm from a family of suicides. Reaching the age of 66 is a great achievement in my family. So I'm perfectly happy being the grandmother and hope to be the great great grandmother. But amen. But I think that the big aha for both companies and individuals is the amount of detailed information that intuition can provide, that we just, that we kind of step over because we don't recognize it. We spend a lifetime training our intellect in school. We spend a lifetime training our emotions in society. We spend no time training this ability, which is also a disability. Because when someone depressed walks into a room and you feel depressed, you don't realize it's them, that's a disability. When someone is judging you and you can hear them, even though you don't identify it as separate from yourself, that's a disability. When you're not in the room, so your power is not in responding to what's around you, but your astral projection or your remote viewing, you're somewhere else, that's a disability. Just like smacking someone because they upset you would be a disability. Just like not weighing the facts intellectually would be a disability. We need to train everything we have. We weight train, we train our bodies. We're ridiculous about our diets. I mean, if I see juice, I don't know what I'm going to do. But we don't train this very powerful ability that allows us to have exactly the information we need.
I love this so much. And it reminds me, to all the naysayers, it reminds me of before Copernicus proved that the sun was at the center of our solar system, remember? The Earth was at the center of our solar system. He said, yeah, not so fast. And he proved it. Before, I think it was Niels Bohr was able to prove there were subatomic particles. We couldn't see it, but he proved neutrons and protons and electrons. And there's example after example. The Earth was flat until it was circumnavigated. On and on and on. And I love what you're saying, Laura, because the truth is we all have psychic abilities. Our minds, our consciousness are so much more connected, and you and others who have tapped into those abilities are changing the paradigm. Right. And most of the rest of the world hasn't caught up. But I use these historic examples because all of us would say, well, duh. Of course, the sun's at the center of our solar system, but not in 1450 or whenever that was. Right. Because we didn't have the tools to prove it.
And even more important is if you didn't go past a certain place because you thought the Earth was flat, you didn't discover the spices, the diamonds, the gold
exactly.
that were available.
Right.
And that's really what our old prisms do to us. They keep us from discovering all of those incredible riches. And it all, I think that what I see, because I don't find that, even in the 90s, I didn't find that business or medicine was resistant to what I did. They were resistant to the people who used it irresponsibly, the people who said, if you believe in healing, you'll stop your insulin. You're diabetic. You call them amputees or corpses when you do that. They objected, if you want to give medical advice, either do it for a doctor for their patients, which is what I do, or become a doctor. But there are ethical, like, you don't. I work with companies because I'm one voice. With a human being, I work with my students. Like, I read people who take my boot camp workshops, but first of all, they're learning how to do it themselves. And second of all, they're in a community of readers. I'm not the only voice. I know they have support. I know that there's therapy available because, often people say, well, you see what you're supposed to see. It's true that you as an individual repress what it is that would disintegrate your ego and make you not functional. But someone else doing a reading for you won't do that. So you could receive information that's really damaging. What I like about a company is if I'm wrong, I get fired. There's no belief in it. Once you go into belief, it gets a little scary because, if there's a fire and you're jumping into a trampoline out of a window, you don't want to believe it's going to catch you. You want to know its tensile strength and have been proved.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because you are linked to all sorts of famous celebrities and these CEOs, which is probably even more important. I mean, I would think the impact you're having on business decisions that these billion-dollar corporations are making is even more consequential. What are these? But whoever you're assisting, what are these CEOs? What are these celebrities extracting from you?
I mean,
like if you're sitting down, like what does a session like that look like?
Well, first of all, I don't do sessions. People call me up. They say, "Do you have a moment?" Yes. I did it. What do you think about this company? So then I have to translate. What are they really asking me? What do I think? Do I think the stock price will rise? Do I think it's an ethical company? Do I think that, what are they actually asking me? Then I have a target. I have a goal. And then I just notice what I see. What people mostly want from me is either kind of corporate spying or prediction. Will this movie be a hit? What will be the result if I have this co-star versus this co-star? Tell me about this business deal. What are the downsides? How can I prevent them? And that's really, they don't tell me about the deal. That's what the question sounds like. So I know nothing about it. Information is hard. That's why I have a very hard time reading myself, because I know stuff about me, or at least I think I do. A lot of what I know about me is misinformed, but it's a detached state. So what I do, my day job is I predict the future. That really is, I predict the future. I evaluate companies. I evaluate situations. I evaluate products, and purely based on them giving me a target with very little information and my just reporting. I love my work, and because it does require me, even if I'm working with a CEO and it's all business, to be, in a very unique way, intimate with what the person's doing. I only work with people I like.
Well, I think that's great advice. And I'm with you right there. But let me rewind and ask you two questions about this. One, so when say a movie studio asks you about which co-star is better and how the movie will do, what is your process?
The minute someone asks me a question, actually usually the minute someone just is in my attention, I get all of these. I get a movie, I get a sense, I get names, I travel in time, and I just I'm a big talker, as you can tell, and you have a hard time getting a word in edgewise, and I just report. I talk and talk and talk. And actually, my husband laughs because, of course, most of the time I don't do this in front of him. But when someone calls as I'm walking to another room, I go, no, I talk. You listen. Because even companies, I've worked with two of my companies for over 30 years, and they want to explain because in other modalities, you say, well, this company
Tell me more. Yeah.
about for this, and I'm wondering if I should make a bigger investment and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the minute they say, yes, I want to know about this company that, and I say, no, you listen, I talk. You listen, I talk.
Interesting.
And he laughs because he goes, oh my God, this is the story of my marriage.
That's hilarious. That's so cute. Well, okay, so that makes sense. Now, do you like the CEOs that are coming back to you, or celebrities, or whoever your client is? Are they mostly coming to you to get that that, if you will, that, and what do you call it? Do you call it a reading? Do you call it a prediction? I think you called it.
Yeah, a prediction.
Are you teaching them to do it, or do they just say, we don't want to do it, we just want you to do it?
My CEOs don't want to do it. Like okay. my job is to predict for them. And by the way, they're CEOs of billion-dollar companies because they're already good at what they do. I mean,
right.
You're
giving them the edge, Laura.
And often what I say is confirmation of their own intuition. Often what it is they have all this data, which, data is only as good as its accuracy. So we all make decisions with some pretty inaccurate data, and then the decision isn't accurate. So often what I'm doing is they're successful because their intuition and their knowledge is operating well. I'm often the backstop. I'm it says, oh yeah, okay, she knows nothing and she's getting exactly the same thing. So that confirms for me that my decisions are right. I mean, I don't cross. I'm really careful not to cross boundaries. I mean, of course, my dear friends, I will read anything for them. But I'm, the reason that business and medicine and very mainstream companies and professions work with me is that I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be any of these things. I work with people who are licensed to do those things. And it's, I think that it's often an excuse for lack of a better word, fringe professions to say, oh, they just don't accept this. Yeah, they do. I was working with, medical researchers in the late 80s. They accept it when you have appropriate morality around it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you've touched on that a few times, that the ethics and judgment and so forth of it. So let me ask you this: what is a simple practice to start strengthening intuition?
So you don't want more intuition. You want to use the prism, and you want to direct your intuition toward your goals. I mean, your intuition should make your life better, should create for you. So first of all, know your goals. Don't have a laundry list. In the prism, I asked you to pick 3. I don't think you can hold more than 3. And what you'll notice as you work on them is that they're all really under one umbrella. Those goals are really a single one. When you're about to hyper-focus, when you're anxious, when you're fearful, when you're determined, take a moment to soft focus. And then notice how your attention shifts. Also, those insights that come from left field, that sign on the way to work that all of a sudden you notice 3 times, write that down. Really document what it is that you suddenly notice when you employ soft focus, when you have your goals, and verify it, prove or disprove it. The other thing, one of the best ways to train intuition is to answer intuitively for others. A very simple way is to have them write down a question and hold it. Don't look at it. And it often helps for them to write down like 6 and then just to hand you one without them knowing so that you're not in their mind. Uh, and then just notice everywhere your attention goes and report it. Because what's interesting is attention is really mobile. So if you hold one of these goals, and I say goals instead of questions because in my first book 30 years ago, I had people work with questions, and I realized questions make people anxious. Goals are just a question, but framed in a different way. If you keep a running documentation of what hits you from left field, the new things that happen once you set a goal, once you employ soft focus, what you'll notice is it really provides a roadmap. The other thing is the way you can really get clarity in using your intuition is to be careful where your intuition leaks. And I'm going to give you a really simple morning exercise. When you wake up, ask yourself, where am I? Because it's rarely in your bed in your room. Your attention is somewhere else. Where am I? Is there anything I need to know there? Who's in me? Because we're very porous, and often someone who's thinking about you or upset with you or even loving you will be in you, but that's still not you. You need dominion of your own experience. And then take a breath and be full of you. Be mindful. Fill yourself with you. And once again, notice if there's any information. Do I need to pick up the phone and make a call to this person? But then do it. Don't let it sit in you. And also notice telepathy. Who am I dialoguing with? Whether they started it or I started it, is it a dialogue I want to be having? Is it a helpful dialogue?
Let me rewind. I want to come back to telepathy, but I do want to go over these 3 points. So I wake up in the morning, whether my eyes are open or closed, I first say, where am I? Right? So that's one.
Where's
and then
attention?
Where's my attention?
Space time, are you in the past, another house?
Okay.
Your car, are you awakened or worried about where your car is parked? Where are you that's not in your body, in your room? Who's in me? So are you feeling like you? Who else are you feeling like? And then feel, you can get the information from that if you need it. And once again, this isn't like a 10-minute meditative process. This should be like that. Who's, often it's your kid or your best friend who's having a trouble, but you're not helpful to them if you're merged with them. You're helpful to them. People say we're like one. Then you have a crappy relationship, because in order to be in relationship, you actually need to be separate, or you can't have a relationship. Then you have a merging, and that's different. So who's in me? And you have a second of mindfulness, you being you. I find it really helps for me to get up and literally jump, shake, so that I really am in me. And then really notice the conversations you're having in your head, and are they useful? Sometimes you wake up and someone is just saying, you get this dialogue of, wow, you're great. Or you're saying to someone else, wow, I really appreciate you. Well, that's a great dialogue to be having. But sometimes you're having I shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. Those dialogues, you need to refocus on what's productive, what's the can do in your day, and also what time zone. In the Prism, I talk about time zones: past, future, non-local, which is, when you're somewhere else than where your physical being is, and the present. And it is so important that you keep yourself in the present. The future will be there and inform you. The past is always being recontextualized. And the non-local is a place you should only go. That intuitive, distant, non-local is a place you should only go when you need to gather information.
Meaning, and what do you mean by that?
Well, if I want to, so I travel a lot. My non-local is noticing what's going to happen during the travel day and preparing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I may notice that I need to throw an extra pair of leggings in, and I don't realize that someone walks by me and spills something. So just that, I wrote a book called The Circle, and it really is about putting all of that on automatic pilot. I wrote it actually book. And then when I did it in audio, 20 years later, I realized it was really supposed to be an audio experience. Um, but or non-local is, waking up and not being in your room, being outside, wondering, if your car is safe, but you're actually energetically there. And that's what people don't realize. The less of your energy that's mindful, that's in your present, the less power you have to make those changes that will affect your future, that will recontextualize your past, that will change the cells of your body. I mean, one of the things that I did before COVID, not really, I guess, in response to what was going to happen without being consciously aware of it, because if I'd been consciously aware of it, I would have had a nervous breakdown, is I traveled around the country and I did what's called laying on of hands, which is when you direct energy to create a healthier body or life situation for somebody. And 800, 1,000 people would show up. And what I would do is I would start by training people just very quickly, because it's an innate ability, on how do you heal another person. Very hard to heal yourself, because again, you're limited by your structure and habits, by your prism. What you can do, though, is accept healing from others and offer healing to others. So I created healing communities, and I asked healers, local healers, whether they were doctors or dentists or massage therapists or teachers, but people who were engaged in making someone else, facilitating someone else being better. I gave them a 15-minute class before the event, and then laying on of hands, and incredible miracles occurred. Verifiable ones, physical ones, but the wonderful miracles were also people who suddenly, got enough money from the government to pay off their mortgage on the house they were going to lose, or someone whose son who hadn't been speaking to them came back, and someone who suddenly bumped in to the pastor who ran the program to deal with their addiction. Like these wonderful things would occur. And I actually want to start doing them again, but I would literally physically lay my hands on, 800 people a night, because of course, even though everyone in the group was just as good a healer, everyone wants not the great honey in the jar, but the honey in the bear, so I was the honey in the bear. And people would say, aren't you exhausted? I was like, oh my goodness. After sharing energy with 800 people, I was so healed, so energized, because it reordered me. And why did it reorder me? Because I always have a goal that I take. I mean, healers become healers. And it's back to what we were talking about before, how your pathology becomes your potential. I have lived a life where I needed healing. The prism I was given was a pretty damaged one. And in needing to find all the modalities of healing, I became a healer. And what a wonderful gift for me, because now I train healers who then heal me.
I mean, amen, sister. I love that, because I think everybody was, and I'm going to admit it too. Oh my God, you must be exhausted after you put your hands on 800 people and other people's energy is exhausting. That you just were like, no, it is the opposite. It's like such a hallelujah and amen. And it's like, gosh, it feels like it is such an opportunity to experience life so differently, right? And I don't know, like it's
something, it's energy outside of you. We keep seeking to understand when actually the change is often just in the doing, and it takes wit.
Well, two things, and I want to get to our third section. You did say that when you tune in, act on it, right? Because I would think that creates a virtuous cycle. Like if you have the idea, and I'll do this too.
Don't have the idea, have it from outside of you. If it comes from you, it perpetuates an old dynamic. So it's something outside of you.
Oh, I see. But what you were describing in the morning when you're saying, where am I? Where's my attention? Who is in me? And then you're saying to tune in. Geez, I should call this person.
Tune in. That's a palate cleanser. That's the lemon ice between the salty and the sweet. It's your palate cleanser. that isn't how you tune in. It's how you the intuition that isn't helping you out of you, so you can be mindful and present and say and be able to say, okay, I want I woke up this morning and my goal is I want a relationship. Clearly, if I knew how to have one, I would. So let me either go to that section of the prism, or let me listen to a YouTube from an expert and try one thing that feels ridiculous but safe. It has to be from inside of you. That's why, I am a very accurate intuitive. I go to somebody else for me. My students are wonderful because I can't read me. I have my biases, I have my judgments, I have the places I don't see what I don't see and I don't want to see. Just like I can't heal me, left to my own devices. Eating slows me down and I'm an energizer bunny. Left to my own devices, I would never eat.
Oh my God, Laura. Same. And I've never heard anybody say that except for you just now. Literally, I say all the time, I don't even care about food. I would take a pill. I just care about coffee.
Exactly. So my husband on Laura Day and on Instagram, I post this series of pictures called Stephen Eating, because what do I have? I'm so much healthier in my marriage and not so healthy when he goes away for a week because I stop eating again. But when he's here, I feed him. And so I eat because I will remember to caretake. That's
right.
part of my pathology.
But but I am genuinely confused because so I wake up in the morning, I do the, where's my attention?
Palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're mindful. Then you're present. You're not someone else. You're not having conversations you don't know you're having that are affecting you. You are fully present.
Okay.
And then you have your goals.
Okay.
So, and then you are able to find those modalities outside of yourself, whether you use my modality, which is the prism and the circle, or whether you go to a group, or whether you find a therapist who challenges you, or whether you just go for a walk and bump into who and what you bump into. You allow yourself to be flexible in responding to those catalysts, and you find I think that we all I think it's a very sad thing to tell overburdened people that they need to work harder, look more deeply into themselves, find out what's wrong with them. What's wrong with you? You're all on a growing path. If we didn't have challenges, we would have nothing to do and nothing to teach and nothing to become. It would be very, very boring. My experience is spirit doesn't evolve us. Spirit's perfect. We evolve spirit. We are teaching that oneness, the lessons that are hard won through our efforts. And I think that it's really annihilating for people to say you just have to try harder. The answer's in
totally.
Work harder, do more, spend more.
Yeah. I got you.
Get more modalities. No, you're a system within a system within a system. And I wrote something for Oprah about the only time I wore red, and all of a sudden people responded to me differently. That night changed my life.
Wow.
Redheads in my day didn't wear red.
Got it. Interesting.
And
okay.
I wore red, and literally the way the world responded. And I wore red because I was in just a terrible state, and I really didn't care. My dresser gave me a red dress. I said, fine. I wasn't gonna. Who cared? At that point, that was the least of my problems. Wore red solved all my problems because all of these dynamic people responded to me because I'm a gray and navy blue person.
Oh, I can relate to that.
This is a wild necklace for me. My husband got me these. These are wild earrings for me.
Oh, beautiful. Right.
I'm a little pearl stud kind of gal. And people, the world responds to you the way you present. My father once said to me, why do you bother dressing your son, your 1-year-old so beautifully? It's ridiculous. And I said, He goes, he doesn't know what he's wearing. I said, yes, but the world responds to how adorable he is in those red patent leather boots.
Yeah, well, and I think too, with in that instance, that feeling that he gets that love and care. I mean, that's an energetic transfer. But I want to come back to two or three things. One,
love and care and diapers. You get that's not.
Yeah,
it really is.
But it feels like it's an intent. It's an intention, though. It's like you're putting that specific intention.
I'm not a big person. I'm real argumentative about intention, because your intention doesn't matter. Your action does. People intend a lot of good things. They do a lot of things they intend to be good, and they're very bad things. And if they look at the result, if they look at the proof of it, they'll see what they're doing is wrong. What they're doing is bigoted.
But that feels like a divergence between intention and action. I feel like if you have clear intention and your action is misaligned, well, then you're out of integrity, right?
Yeah, for me, I think that I'm a real action reaction person. We live in a constant dialogue with our environment. You may think you're doing something out of kindness, but most of our 97% of our life is unconscious.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the subconscious is running the show, for sure.
That's right. So you may think that before a big event, telling your best friend that shirt that she doesn't have another one to change into doesn't look great on her, that you're really being honest and helping, where actually subconsciously you're jealous and undermining. So intention, again, is a hard one because we're not that aware. We're again very bound by our blinders. Whereas when you take an action and you notice what it yields, and then you learn from outside of yourself how to do that differently, I think that is much more. That's much more a landmark of a successful a successful effort than what the intention is. I think intention is important, just in terms of, again, framing. Having a goal of how we want to define ourselves. Do I want to be someone who wins, or do I want to be someone who heals? Like that kind of intention. It doesn't mean that I won't sometimes be confused, but those are integrity intentions, defining intentions. And still, even with those, we need to learn what that is.
Right. Well, I want to hit a few points and get to our third section. One, I'm going to rewind a few minutes, and there was something that you wrote in the book that really stuck with me, and I'm paraphrasing it. You said something to the effect of, conflict isn't meant to be transcended, but metabolized. And when I think about that, and in reference to what we were talking about, in this whole business of trying harder and so forth, this idea of conflict being this metabolizing agent, because there's so much resistance and so forth. It's just something that I was like, ooh, I'm going to use that. So that was one. And then two, I just want to wrap up this section on intuition being, like you say, it's not mystical, it's not magical, it's extremely practical, right? And we've talked about some ways to tap into it. Let me actually ask you this. When I've thought about tapping into my intuition, I've thought about really trying to expand my peripheral vision, right? So often we're looking ahead, and when I'm more mindful of, hey, what's in my periphery? What does that sign say? Or what is that thing that I hadn't been noticing, because I am intentionally trying to use my peripheral vision, which could be quite literally a side of my eye, or just being more present and more mindful. Does that kind of framework of peripheral vision resonate with you?
Yes, very much. I mean, my favorite example of that is the person who calls me and says, I broke a mirror. So there's so much bad luck. And I'm like, oh, how are your children? Oh, they're doing great. One's off to college. How's your marriage? Oh my God, I love him so much. How's your work? Wow, I just got a raise. How's your home? Oh, the garden is beautiful. I'm like, why is the broken mirror a sign and none of these other things are signs? Your whole life is a sign. Your whole life, you refracting energy through your prism and creating the world. If you want to know what to work on, look at the realities of your life. Don't look inside. It's a mess in there. Look outside. What is it that you want to achieve? It's funny. I had a little tiff with an interviewer the other day because they were talking about my friend Debbie Moore's comeback. I'm like, her comeback? You mean the woman who a couple years ago published a #1 New York Times brutally honest bestseller, her first book ever, Inside Out? That wasn't a comeback? You mean the woman who raised 3 extraordinary daughters? Like that? Like, what are we talking about here? That's your value system. Yeah. Now she's nominated for an award. That's her comeback? No, she's been doing lots.
She's been back. She's been coming.
That's
right.
Great. And, on some level, of course, we evaluate things within our own paradigm. And that's what the prism is about. How do we change that paradigm with a tiny, tiny different action? And that could be just setting a goal, not having to believe in it, moving toward it, noticing what happens, and finding those small actions to create it. Because the interesting thing is when you heal one thing, it tends to be a domino effect.
Okay, so let's get into section 3, how to tap into the infinite power we all share. And I want to start with this fun quote on your site from Chris Rock. He says, "How to Rule the World from Your Couch," one of your best-selling books, "is perhaps the greatest book ever written. Everyone that's ruled the world has read it, and it worked. Bill Gates, George Bush, Oprah. Saddam Hussein didn't read it and was hanged. So if you want to rule the world and not be hanged, read this book." It was like, that is too cute. Chris Rock, always there for the laughs.
That is my favorite quote.
Yeah, no, it's so good.
Artist man.
Totally. I mean, such a light, genuinely such a light. So as I understand it, once we gain clarity and quiet our ego and...
No, not quiet your ego.
Not quiet the ego. Okay.
Rest in your ego. Your ego is the machine with which you create.
Well, I'm glad I got that wrong so you can clarify it. Tap into your ego. Okay.
No, your ego is your structure. Someone who says that you should lose your ego wants to take away your power, because without ego, you're just a mass of amorphous energy with no direction. Ego is everything that starts with I. I work, I love, I believe, I help, I invest, I am, that's what we're here to do. We're here to be an I. And the problem is many of us, your ego is formed from conception. So some of it's genetic through age 7. And then the rest of it is reforming it. And in the reforming it, you create your life again and again. But your ego is so important. And your ego also helps you take responsibility. Because, when you attribute things to chance or destiny, that means you're not responsible. You are responsible. You are responsible. You're not responsible for what happened to you as a child, but you're responsible for now. I love the excuse, and I mean, my childhood from the book. I love the excuse of, well, she had a terrible childhood. That's not an excuse. The minute you have an ego, it's on you. And if you're the problem, you can solve it.
I mean, hallelujah and amen, right? That to me is the ultimate empowerment, right? Otherwise you even talked about something that I love to talk about too, how much power we give away, right? But let's get into, I feel like this is a good way to you've been referring to the prism, but I would love for you to define, we've talked about some of the ego centers and so forth, but we haven't really gotten into the, if you will, the thesis and the big idea of the book. And I love how so we're talking about ego, how so often the ego is vilified. And I even made the mistake of saying, okay, quiet your ego. And you're like, no. So you've done a totally radical thing, which is saying, no, the ego that's where the action is. Right. And that the prism is, that's what we're talking about, the ego. So I would love for you to give us the, if you will, the kind of the highlights of this book, and then we can go a little bit deeper into how we can tap into that wisdom.
So when you think of a prism, it is a structure, and it takes what seems like colorless air, light, and it refracts it into a myriad of colors. And that's what we do as human beings. We are structures. We take that energy that we all share and we create our reality, everyone's reality, through that structure. So, what the prism really is if your structure, whether it's your company, your relationship, your physical body, the opportunities or people or communities available to you, if your structure is not what you want, then there are very simple, really mechanical ways to introduce something that changes it. And to do it without taking a lot of time out from your life, but to do it as you're living your daily life. Like for me, just kind of accepting that yes, as we spoke about before, embracing that. So it people don't love this phraseology, but we are spiritual machines. We are mechanical beings in a mechanical universe, in a mechanical world. And there are rules to that. And intuition does help you download those rules. And the prism is the prism is really takes apart those simple rules to create different things in the world. And in doing so, to recreate yourself. And I think that we often go, but backwards. We think we have to recreate ourselves to recreate our world. But actually, if you do something different, you encounter something different, and that changes you. Again, very hard to change from an inside out. It's using the same broken tools that created the broken system to fix it. And you can't.
Well, and I love that. Just, we were talking a few minutes ago about taking action, and you've referenced it in this talk, and I've heard you reference it elsewhere, that sometimes because we're a system within the system within the system, that tiny change can have that a disproportionate effect. And I love that permission for people, because so often to make radical change is really scary. But everybody can make small changes. And to see a disproportionate impact on a small change can feel really affirming.
And again, you use the word feel, and I think we're trained to use the word feel. But when you make a small change and something big changes in your life out of the blue, that's proof. That's not feeling. Feeling isn't fact. That's fact. And consistently employing that creates change, desired change. Then you have a whole new prism to work with. And of course, when you repeat something and you get affirmation for it, you get proof for it over and over again, then you change the way your subconscious works. You change the what's really running the show, because your subconscious may be misguided, may get you into some awful situations, the same ones again and again, but it's actually trying to help you survive. And so when you give it proof and you affirm that proof through repetitive behavior, your subconscious gets right on board with you and becomes your best friend.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that, when I think about, back to the, I can't remember if it was Jungian, I think it's Jungian, this idea that we're all tapping into this collective unconscious, that we have a unique ability to create that virtuous cycle. Like you're saying, by making those small changes and seeing the difference in our lives. And it feels like we're able to kind of tap in a big way by almost like tapping in a small way. Would you agree with that? Or, because I'm trying to connect it back to this greater intuitive field that we're all a part of.
Well, if you again think of, we are all one energy, and every science now really affirms the proof of an interconnected energy that we all share. But that's an unchanging energy. We as individuals create that change, and we're always tapped in. We just are using a broken machine to navigate it. And really what the prism is about is, you want this thing changed. Here's the fix for your machine. You want this, businesses also, they tend to get stuck in how they're formed, and their origin myths. Um, and often it does take a huge crisis or a new CEO that is imposed on them, not that they pick because it resonates with them, to make them successful again. Because we all function within a whole. A fraction of a change in temperature in Antarctica affects the worldwide. So everything that you experience is experienced by the entire field, which is why you can both change the field by changing your experience. And often for every part of your machine, the prism says, okay, here's your healing key. So the healing key, we've been working on the seventh ego center, which is about how does the world support us? The healing key is peace. And so I'm always ready to go into battle. On my website, lauraday.com, and on Instagram, Laura Day Intuit, we rebuild ourselves as a community over and over again. So we're working on the seventh ego center, which is really about unity, alchemy, and transcendence, taking what is and expanding it, transcending the limitations, not by jumping above it, but by working within it together and expanding it. So we're able to we have access to all knowledge, to all energy, but we are limited by how we were formed. And what those communities and changes and different ideas allow us to do is to be our own adults, in a sense, be our own caretakers, and restructure the parts of our life that don't work. And again, I really have seen in over 40 years of teaching that those inner deep changes that we suffer over that don't make any changes don't really do as much as walking to work a different way and being exposed to different things. That's why people who make huge changes in their lives or meet the love of their life, having never had a love before, often do so when they go on vacation and their habits are no longer held in place by their routine. We need those catalysts. And yes, we are all one, but as one, of course, we can't impact anything. We're merged. We're one.
Totally. Yeah. We are all, like you say, we're a system within a system within a system. And it's just like having that kind of that appreciation for how we are influencing each other. And it feels like being open to that is and showing up a little bit differently, taking that different walk or going on that vacation is a way to, like you say, to have those catalysts that give us the signal we need.
So, because this is a system, and of course the different ego centers are online. You can go on my website, but I'm going to do something that mirrors the system, kind of without the data attached. So I want you to take a moment to recall your goal. We get very distracted from our goals because we're all over the place. We're engaged, which we should be. But take a moment. What is your goal? And just notice what that goal is. And then suspend the illusion of separateness while staying separate. So suspend the illusion that you are not connected. You are connected to everything and everybody, past, present, and future. Don't close your eyes. Don't go somewhere else. This is not a meditation. This is an actual truth of experience. So be present, be mindful for it. And as you suspend that illusion of separateness, I want you to notice where from the top of your head to the base of your spine, where your attention goes, where it stops. And then I want you to put your hand there. Now, I'm sure most of you know the chakras. The ego centers follow the chakras, although they are not the chakras. But wherever your hand goes, I want you to notice one experience, one memory. Just notice, don't look for it. Notice one experience. And I want you to notice how you could now, as an adult, reinterpret that experience in a way that's empowering to you. And now I want you to notice how that same experience, how you might have repeated that today, and how you can take that reinterpretation and apply it to your experience that you had today, and commit to doing that with that experience over the next few days. So, for example, I went to my third ego center, which is my solar plexus, all about drive and cooperation and manifestation. And I had a memory of being an oldest and kind of having to watch while everyone else participated in life, but I was the responsible one. And I noticed where that happened again today in preparing for guests that are coming tonight. And I noticed that when my husband comes home from the gym, where he is right now, that the healthy thing for me to do, and again, we started with our goal, so this is what would help catalyze the energy, shift the energy for my goal. The healthy thing to do would be to ask him after he jumps in the shower to help me set up for our guests instead of doing what I normally do, which is doing it before he comes home. And taking that experience of being on the periphery, because I was this responsible one, and realizing I'm an adult in a world of other adults and I can ask them to help. And so over the next few days, engaging and then noticing what happens in regard to my goals that have to do with the third ego center, which is drive, cooperation, manifestation. Do I manifest a big piece of the goal through changing how I cooperate and what my drive is? My drive doesn't have to be just to support everybody. My drive can be toward cooperation. So you use that as new information. You try a new behavior. And so you use that memory. And of course, those of you who have the prism, you go to that section in the prism and you pick one question to live or one assertion to live. To live, I mean to practice. And you notice what changes. And again, always when you stress, take a moment to soft focus.
Yeah, I love that. It's so practical. And thinking of it like you're saying about those ego centers, and to get us back into our bodies, and not to think, but just to follow where it's taking us.
Respond, not react, but respond.
Yeah. I love it so much, Laura. Thank you. You've been so generous with your time and your insights and wisdom. I'm going to give you the last word. We've covered a lot of ground, but any last advice or anything you want to underscore before we wrap up?
Yes. A miracle takes a moment. Falling in love takes a moment. Bumping into someone who gives you a new job takes a moment. Making a new friend takes a moment. Finding that perfect apartment, seeing the sign takes a moment. A miracle takes a moment. So know the miracle, choose the miracle you want. And then, it doesn't have to feel good to be good. It really live an evidence-based life. Try something, try it habitually for a week, notice what happens. If it doesn't work, try something else. But a miracle takes a moment. Create that moment.
I love that so much, but I do have to ask, when you said it doesn't have to feel good to be good, what do you mean by that?
So, when people make wishes like I want to be happy when that's their goal, I'm like, you could get a head injury and be happy. Feeling is not a good indicator of success. Evidence is. And I think that feeling good often is doing this, enacting our old prism, affirming our old life, our old beliefs. That feels good. We're mammals. We don't like change. And so feeling isn't a good indicator. Believing you can do something is not a good indicator either. Get up and do it. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. There are very few fatal ones. The doing is important, and the observing the response and the going with the productive responses, not how it feels.
Amen. Laura Day, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being on The Power of Manifestation. I've loved this. I've learned so much from you. Oh my gosh, you guys. I don't know what to say. I feel so energized and on fire, and I'm sure you do too. For more of Laura Day, you can get free courses, all this great material at lauraday.com. You can also go on Instagram to Laura Day Intuit. Like she says, she does live sessions. She's training people. Of course, her beautiful book, The Prism, is out now. The Circle, she's got just a ton of books, a ton of resources. So do take full advantage of this extraordinary woman. Cultivate your intuition. If you want to manifest more successfully, right? We talked at the beginning about how manifestation fails or isn't going to be as successful without really being able to tap into that intuition. Also, remember, intuition is not a magical, mystical thing, you guys. It is so practical. It is just being very deliberate about tapping in and understanding these catalysts that are outside of us that can help us really hone that intuition and take full advantage of it. And then finally, grounded intuition opens us up to that collective alignment, that opportunity to tap more into that collective unconscious. And ding, 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 it is grounded in action. Remember what she was talking about, taking that action, seeing what happens, responding versus reacting. And finally, as she said, miracles take a moment, right? So getting into that opportunity that you can create for yourself to really create those miracles through honing your intuition. Laura did such a brilliant job of reminding us action is where the action is, right? And if you don't like the outcome, just keep taking that aligned action, responding without reacting, and miracles take a moment. You heard it from Laura Day. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Power of Manifestation. I look forward to seeing you in the next session.